G'day, welcome to Bradley's Bakehouse, where today we're going to be making a whole meal in a loaf of bread with a Pane Di Cacciatore. So this recipe is an interpretation of a recipe that a baker that I used to work with used to tell me about all the time. Used to be like the flagship product of the bakery that he used to work at. He described it as being like a long ferment Pane Di Cacciatore no-knead style bread with sun-dried tomatoes, olives and garlic in it. He refused to give me the actual recipe, so this is just what I'm assuming that it probably was. So let's get to it. For ingredients, this bread is really very simple. We've got some bread flour here, nice strong bread flour. It's about 12.5% protein, good stuff. We've got some salt. We've got some instant yeast, not active dry, just instant. You'll be happier for it, trust me. I've got some fridge cold water because I live in Queensland and it's like 5:45 in the evening and it's still like 30 degrees Celsius. And in the cacciatore part of our dough, we've got some sliced black olives, we've got sun-dried tomatoes, so that's about equal parts each. It's about 50 grams of each of them for this recipe. And we've also got a single clove of garlic that we're gonna microplane in. You might be tempted to use more garlic, don't. If you grate garlic, it gets really garlicky. You could finely mince it, you'd be fine. You could mandolin it, you'd be fine. But if you're gonna grate it, just stick to one clove. We've made Pane Di Cacciatore on this channel before. It's essentially like a no-knead bread. You mix all your ingredients together and then through time and science, a gluten matrix develops and you end up with a bread that you don't have to knead. That'll give you like a lovely, slightly irregular crumb structure and like a nice, like artisanal, crusty crust. In the spirit of all of that and this being like super easy, we're just gonna dump our flour, our yeast and our salt in just like a big container that we can seal and move around. We're just gonna give that like a little cursory mix, or you could do what I do and just seal it up and just spin it. Trust me, it works fine, don't worry. Don't think too much about it. That's the important thing, don't think too much about it. I am going to use this bowl that I had the flour in, and I'm gonna mix our semi-dried tomatoes and our olives. Now these were strained pretty thoroughly before I put them in here. You don't really want any excess like oil and stuff like that getting in there, just because it'll make the whole thing harder to handle. I'm just gonna microplane this garlic over the top of this. Just gonna sort of mix these up a little bit, get that garlic dispersed. Now, this dough's a little bit lighter on the salt because like those olives, very salty, they've been packed in brine. Semi-dried tomatoes, they're usually packed in some kind of like flavored olive oil over here in Australia. So they've got their own little seasoning on there. So the salt's only, I think, 1.5%. I'm gonna mix these in with the flour first so I can get them like pretty evenly dispersed. So I don't have to do a ton of kneading and a ton of like hand work when I put the water in, because I don't want to crush everything up. I want everything to be evenly dispersed, but I don't want it to be crushed. So I'm gonna fold those through and then I'm gonna pour my water in. Again, fridge cold water because it's Queensland. And I'm just gonna mix that together. I'm just using my hand because I would use a dough whisk, but I want to be really gentle here. Instead of sort of like throwing the dough around, I'm rotating the container. Get all into the corners, get everything picked up. It smells really good. It smells very garlicky, considering there's only one clove. The goal of this is not to knead it or to like anything, it's just to bring it all together into like a single shaggy mass so that the flour can hydrate and the yeast can do its thing. See these like little daggy like dredge bits over here? Pick them up, sprinkle them over the top, and then you can sort of use your palm like a little bit. Pane Di Cacciatore is always one of the first breads that I recommend people making because it's kind of the thing where you get to witness like the fermentation over like a really long period of time. Like this kind of just looks like a pile of shit, but this is gonna be a very appetizing loaf of bread come tomorrow. So that's all brought into one mass there. What we're gonna do is we're gonna seal this container up and we're gonna leave this out at room temperature for probably around 3 hours. And then we're gonna throw it in the fridge. Now, if we were doing just like a regular Pane Di Cacciatore that didn't have the olives, the sun-dried tomatoes, the garlic, I would probably leave this out at room temperature overnight, but because we've got some stuff in it that's kind of perishable, we're gonna put it in the fridge just to like be on the safe side. Good morning and welcome back. Our Pane Di Cacciatore has been in the fridge overnight. It's lovely and fermented. We've taken it out of the fridge about an hour ago to kind of just take the chill off. We're getting it out of the container now, we're getting onto the bench. So I'm just gonna sprinkle my work surface with just like a tiny bit of all-purpose flour, and I'm just gonna sprinkle the top of the dough with it and just kind of keep my fingers pretty floured. You don't wanna use like a ton of flour for this. This dough should be pretty developed and pretty cold, so it should come out of the container nice and easy, just like that. There we go, you can see just how like developed and stretchy and together that is. That's nice, that is very nice. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna pre-shape this. Because we've just pulled it out of the container, all this gluten that we've established during that long ferment is now really pissed off at us. And if we try to shape it now, we're not going to be able to achieve sort of like the optimum results. So what we're going to do is we're just going to sort of tuck it all in to itself. Just sort of bring it all towards the center, right? Roll it over, clear that work surface a little bit, get the flour on the top, and we're just going to sort of boule this up. And we're just going to let this sit on the bench in this kind of boule shape for probably about 20 minutes. And that's gonna relax that gluten and make it easy to shape. A little bit of extra fermentation is gonna occur, but nothing that's really worth sort of worrying or talking about. If you want a more detailed breakdown, step by step, check out my video, Pane Di Cacciatore in this casa. We make 3 different varieties of Pane Di Cacciatore, and we talk a lot more about like the science and a little bit more about the methodology. I'm kind of breezing through some of this stuff just because we've already done Pane Di Cacciatore on the channel before. This is more of like a specific recipe video. This is a really good time to preheat your oven. I've got mine preheating to about 220, 230 degrees, and I've got a cast iron skillet on like the bottom shelf because we're gonna do a steam injection when we bake this as well. You could bake this in a Dutch oven too, just like start it preheating now, because we're about an hour away from this going in the oven, I would say. So let that rest and we'll come back and we'll shape it in about 20 minutes. Okay, so about 20 minutes later, our dough is nice and relaxed. You can sort of feel that it's slackened off a bit. I'm gonna flour it just a little bit. Gonna give it like a little bit of a pat. This is just kind of to flatten it out, and also if there's any like really big air bubbles that we don't want, we're just gonna sort of get rid of those. Use a bench scraper and flip her over. Now, shaping a dough with inclusions, I always feel a little bit sketchy about it. I like to flour my hands a little bit because sometimes you can have something that kind of breaks the surface and you don't really want that. So the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna flatten this out a bit. We're gonna shape this into like a Vienna, so like a long sort of loaf thing. A batard, they're called everywhere else but Australia. Get that flat. Now, this is a 70% hydration dough, but it's gonna be surprisingly easy to handle because of that long ferment, right? And it's also like, it's still a little bit cold from the fridge. So we're gonna flip that top down, right? We've got this nice little line here. We're gonna push that in. That's our seam, right? We wanna keep that on the bottom and we wanna keep that nice and tight and tucked, right? Make sure it's not sticking periodically. Pull forward, roll over, and then push in, right? And we're gonna repeat that motion till we get all the way to the end. And that's gonna ensure us a nice tight little Vienna. So we get all the way to the end here. We've got some nice little bits of tomato, right? You could do that as it is. I know plenty of bakers that do that. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna flour the top a little bit and I wanna bring these ends in, right? So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna flip it and I'm gonna tuck these in gently. I'm gonna tuck these ends in. Spin it around. I'm gonna bring it over and then I'm just gonna roll that out. And that's gonna get us some nice smoother ends, right? I am happy with that. Don't overthink it. The more that you touch it and the more that you like fuck with it, the worse it's gonna be. The real art in shaping and the real way to sort of like elevate shaping is to get good at doing it with as few motions as possible, right? As few motions as possible. The less you can touch the dough, generally speaking, the better it's gonna end up. You're not gonna have weird like handling marks, like that's like a nice tube. It's gonna be a bit bumpy because it's full of olives and tomatoes and shit. This is just a quarter sheet pan with a little bit of baking paper in it. One thing that I've started doing that I really like, this is semolina, coarse durum wheat. I'm just gonna sprinkle the bottom of it with this because I actually really like when the semolina toasts on the bottom. I think it's just a really nice sort of effect. And if you have an oven that's very like bottom heat heavy like mine is, you're worried about it burning the bottom, it's just a nice little bit of extra insurance against that. And we're just gonna plop it down, just sort of lightly bring it together and make sure our shape is nice and consistent. This is just all-purpose flour. This is completely aesthetic. This is 100% optional. You do not have to do this. This is probably gonna take about 40 minutes to proof up. We want it to be, it's not gonna double in size. We want it to be probably about 50% bigger. So 1.5 times the size that it is now. And that's so it can have some nice spring left when it goes into the oven because we're gonna score it. We want that to open out really gorgeously. Our oven's preheating. It's getting towards the target heat that we need it to be. If you're gonna bake this in a Dutch oven or on a baking steel, I hope those are preheating alongside it. And if you're open baking, we've got a cast iron skillet in the bottom of the oven that's getting hot, ready for our water to be delivered onto it. All right, so it's been about 40 minutes. As we can see, our Pane Di Cacciatore, it's nice and poofy, nice and proofed up. It's passing the poke test. I don't know if you know what that is. I'll show a demonstration really quick. See how if I poke it, it leaves a small indent, but it does slowly and like linearly spring back. That's just a good sign to know that the yeast has done what it needs to do, and it's a good time to get it ready for the oven. So this is a bread lamb. It's like a razor blade on a stick that has like a slight curve to it that encourages expansion and oven spring in a particular direction. We need to score this because if we don't and we put it in the oven, when that yeast goes on its little feeding frenzy and it wants to expand and spring, it's going to find the weakest point and it could burst and rupture that open. So what we're going to do is we're going to create artificial weak points so we can sort of channel and manipulate the way that the bread springs. You could score this just about any way. There's millions of scoring tutorials all over the internet. Go to town. I'm just going to do some like quick lines because I think that's just going to look classy and clean. So I'm just going to grab that in the corner. I'm just going to pull that towards me like that. 2, 3. I think I mentioned it before, but someone once told me that like the scores need to be, it needs to be an odd number. Like it's considered poor form to score like an even number. I heard that once and then I internalized it and now I can't do anything else. So I think it was James. Thanks, James. I've got a kettle full of boiling water here because we're about to do a steam injection, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put our product in the oven and then we're gonna lay a tea towel over the oven door to protect it from any water. Then we're gonna dump about a cup of boiling water into that preheated cast iron skillet, quickly pull the tea towel away and close the door. That's gonna flood the baking chamber with steam, which is gonna keep the crust gelatinous, which is gonna allow it to spring to its maximum sort of capacity and also develop a really nice shiny crust. So I'm gonna let that go for about 10 minutes. And then I'm gonna rotate it. That's because my oven is terrible and heats really unevenly. You might not need to do that, but it's a good time to check. After that 10 minutes, it's probably sprung the full amount that it's gonna spring. So I'm gonna kind of manipulate it and baby it to get some nice even browning. This is the kind of thing where you can bake it to your desired preference. After probably about 25 minutes, it's definitely cooked. If you want to bake it a little bit darker, leave it in a bit longer. If you want it nice and blonde, you can pull it out there. We're just gonna go by feel. We ended up baking this one for probably about 40 minutes. You have a fan forced oven, kick that on after you do the steam and just watch how evenly it'll brown and I'll be very envious of you. Woo! And have a look at that little monster, hey? Got these beautiful bridges going on here. Got this, like the lovely little bit of burnishing from the flour. Probably should put more on, but that's on me. That is beautiful and it smells incredible. We've got like a little bit of not like char, but like a little bit of nice like browning and caramelization on like the exposed additions, like the olives and the tomatoes and stuff like that. I am very pleased with that. Now, unfortunately, like just about all the other bread on this channel, we do need to wait for this to fully cool before we cut into it. So we're probably gonna give that probably about 2 hours. I'm probably gonna cut into this one this afternoon. Oh my God, it smells good. It smells so good. It smells like a pizza. Is what it smells like, because I guess it functionally is a pizza. Like it's got freshly baked bread, which is like a long, slow ferment, so it's like a little bit beery, a little bit interesting sort of smelling. It's got the tomato in there, it's got the olives, it's got garlic, you know, I guess it's functionally like, it's a lot more similar to a pizza than I would have thought now that I think about it. So it's been a couple hours and we're finally gonna cut into our Pane Di Cacciatore. I got a new bread knife. Hey, that's fun. We'll see how this goes. Ooh, you see that? Look at that, hey? Beautiful swirls of like tomato and olive, and they smell that long ferment, you know, and it smells like tomato and garlic and olive and all of like the delicious things that we wanted it to smell of. The man was onto something. It's like the really sublime long ferment Pane Di Cacciatore no-knead sort of taste. Like I've said for like a really long time that Pane Di Cacciatore is like one of those recipes that reminds you how good commercial yeast can be when you treat it with a little bit of love and respect. And you've got like the saltiness from the olives and like the rich acid from the sun-dried tomatoes and like that tiny bit of garlic on the back end. It's just like the ultimate sort of like bruschetta, you know? And it's texturally quite interesting too. Like you get like the nice soft olives juxtaposed with like the nice like shattery, crisp crust. It's very good. This is a very good one. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Bradley's Bakehouse. I certainly hope you got something from this. I would encourage you to try and make the Pane Di Cacciatore at home simply because of how easy it is. If you're getting to grips with artisanal baking and maybe you want to start putting some additions in your bread just to see what kind of a difference it makes to shaping, or maybe that's a thing that you want to practice, I would absolutely say to give this recipe a go. It covers a lot of flavor bases and I think it would be very welcome at any dinner party or picnic or lunch or anything like that. So give the Pane Di Cacciatore a try, and if you do, make sure you let me know in the comments. Subscribe if that's a thing that you feel like doing. We've got some really cool stuff coming up, and have a good day.